Well, thank you for checking out Public Finance Conversations again. This week we have Eric Segal with us. He's an appraiser with Integra Realty Resources, and our firm has worked with him quite a bit on community facilities districts. And for those of you outside California, we will explain what community facilities districts are as we go along. But I want to take a moment to thank Eric for joining us and give him an opportunity to provide his resume.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in your series here. Yes, been a commercial real estate appraiser here in California since the late 90s. I got in the business, I think, June of 98, and joined a local firm up in the Sacramento area, Richard Sievers and Associates, that has grown over the last several years to become one of the largest real estate appraisal firms in this region in Northern California. And we now have offices here in Sacramento, San Francisco, and the South Bay, Santa Clara, San Jose area. Kind of got into the business, from college, learning real estate and real estate land use and finance was sort of my areas of study at Cal State University, Sacramento. And in that process, met someone who was working with the local firm at the time. And that's how I ended up coming in for an interview and being familiar with all things commercial real estate. We specialize in all aspects of commercial real estate appraisal. And the elements that appeal most to me is land development and the appraisal of master plan communities, both for lender construction loans and in particular, which is our collaboration often with Fieldman's offices in the land secured financing space.
But Eric, when you started college, it wasn't to be an appraiser. Is that correct?
That's correct. I went to school and was given advice by a colleague of my father's. I'd always wanted to be a lawyer and was going to go. I was hoping to skip college and just go straight to law school. I didn't really see the merits of wasting time on college, but I did go to the university to start a path towards law, and oddly enough chose finance in the business school for that purpose. And as part of the requirements for the School of Business, you have to take business law as a undergrad. And a professor who taught business law happened to be an attorney and a real estate developer, and I should just say I was hooked from the get-go.
It's just, it's one of the things about these public finance conversations is how do these different fields come together. But I also spend quite a bit of time trying to understand how each individual got on the path that they got on. There's only been one other person since we started this that talked about really something happened in college that helped set their path. But it sounds like I'm hearing that from you as well, is there's a professor in college which either presented in such a way or presented material that you found interesting that got you hooked to away from law and into land use and appraising. Is that right?
Absolutely. I admired him so much and what he taught. His name was Dr. West. And, I was so adamant about following the path to law that I really approached him at the end of the semester and asked if he taught any more classes, in particular on law. And he affirmed that he did. He says he does teach. He only taught in the spring, but he taught for the real estate department. And I said, well, that's fine with me. Anything to take more law classes. So between managerial law and real estate law, that ultimately, led me to have that dual concentration of both finance and real estate and land use. And in a strange bit of irony, how it all came together is I would submit that real estate appraisal is that career that is the perfect marriage of those two studies, and probably why I enjoy it as much today.
That's good. Well, I'm certainly glad the path that you chose. Talk to us a little bit about the appraisal being an Appraisal Institute member, the MAIA?
The MAI designation, yes. So our industry, we're licensed with the state of California. All states require licensing for people to practice real estate law. Pardon me, real estate appraisal. Freudian slip. And there is a process through the Appraisal Institute that allows appraisers to gain the experience and knowledge and receive a designation, an MAI designation that is intended to be a demonstration to the market, the public that we serve, that we are somebody held in higher regards, or higher esteem for having experienced the knowledge and the capabilities to handle appraisal assignments. And those often involve more complex, but that designation is meant for the public to know that we're somebody that has committed the time and effort to advance the area of study in real estate appraisal.
Well, you're certainly inspired by a professor, and then you get to the point and you say, I want to make a career out of valuing things for other people. How does that feel on a daily basis to say we are coming up with the value that either I guess what you're coming up with is a value that as a whole the community will support, right? Is that what you're doing there?
Yeah, so they're not always winners. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. This profession, real estate appraisal, is really an integral part of the banking and finance industry. We're really tasked with providing estimates of value that a lot of market participants need to rely upon for decision making. That includes collateral analyses, underwriting requirements, not just for, in our case, land secured, but in traditional lender work. Commercial real estate valuation is really an important aspect of the banking industry and lenders' ability to make good decisions on loans and collateral and debt coverage. So we're often tasked, whether we do work for lenders or municipalities, with establishing value for others to rely upon. And it also includes, individuals, when somebody passes away and has to deal with handling an estate of an heir or people that have accumulated real estate over the years. A lot goes into that, and valuation is a very important aspect of that market.
Have you been in a situation where you've just shocked somebody with the value, either higher than they expected or lower than they expected? And I imagine there's much different responses depending on how you shocked them, if you did.
Yeah, it's nice to get a thank you on the positive side. Yeah, unfortunately, we do have instances where people's perceptions of value, and we're all guilty of it, myself included, people's perceptions of value and, what the market may perceive as value can often be drastically different. I know my partner has been accused of causing a divorce as a result of his appraisal. It can get tiresome or stressful at times. I would submit that the biggest disconnect from real estate valuation for what we do and the market's perception is usually that, when we're establishing market value, the definition of market value presumes a sale. Like that's just that's the definition. You have to, even though it's not selling, even if it's just a refinance, the presumption is a sale. And when market conditions may be soft or negative in certain cases, property owners are adamant, well, I don't intend to sell. it's just for a bank loan or for a refinance. And like, look, I understand, but we're pretending that it is a willing sale, everybody being, acting their own best interest. And sometimes that doesn't get met with positive responses.
Well, you have to remain objective. So, when we started this conversation before we started recording, one of the things we talked about is where you live right now, it feels 110 and there's fires nearby. So there's ashes everywhere,
Mhm.
rolling blackouts, maintain our electricity use. So if you show up to appraise a tract today in your neighborhood, you have to find a way to disconnect those feelings versus a project you recently appraised on another deal that we worked on together. It's very similar characteristics, no fires right now. It gets just as hot out there. But
Right.
on that day, you went there the perfect day, or you had a flyover the perfect day, right? And that project looked beautiful, but there's a lot of similarities between where you live and that location. How do you disconnect to say it's too beautiful a day one day, and it's too difficult a day another day?
That can be a challenge often. To that point, what probably the purest example of that, and it's without a doubt a tragedy and a tragic situation, is north of here in the community of Paradise up in Butte County, not long ago was devastated by a fire. We're often Appraisers are often brought in to estimate market value essentially the day before a tragic event. Uh, a lot of people across the country saw that, for instance, after Katrina in the South, devastated, tremendous communities and a lot of real estate. Just for insurance purposes, they can see what the devastation is. They need to know for insurance purposes what the value was. So appraisers are almost always asked or tasked with approaching an assignment and assuming something to be either in place or not in place, when in fact it's the complete opposite. And as you know, we're often tasked with doing that in appraisals for land secured financing, where you have to assume or presume under a hypothetical condition that all this infrastructure that is going to be financed through a municipal issuance is actually done, when in fact it's not. And that's where a lot of the challenges and valuation techniques have to come into play to enable appraisers to kind of make believe, if you will, and think things that may not be the case.
Well, we've used the term land secured, and then I've used the term community facilities districts. And I know there may be an audience out here that doesn't quite know what those two things are. A community facilities district is formed per the Melrose Act, and what it allows for the most part is new developments to have special tax bonds sold off of those houses or businesses within those boundaries. Oftentimes, a public agency will have goals and policies that when they sell bonds, they have to a certain value to lien ratio, like either 3 or 4 to 1. It's probably the most two common numbers.
Sure.
But also, investors oftentimes want to have something about what the value of the land is as well. And that's where Eric's firm and our firm oftentimes work together, is on community facilities districts. So just want to make sure I explained what those are. We'll probably use the term CFD as we go through too.
Sure.
But Eric, you've talked a bit about some of the other stuff that you do, but what else is it that you do besides community facilities district? I know you don't do individual residences, but maybe talk a bit about what a commercial real estate appraiser does.
Sure. Commercial real estate appraisal and properties that are referred to as commercial real estate, covers almost everything that isn't, single family residential. Could be a 5-unit little multifamily apartment to a Class A high-rise office building in downtown Los Angeles, the shopping center or the mall that people shop at, and a 2 million square foot Amazon distribution warehouse. Our firm completes appraisals for all forms of commercial real estate. I've again, worked on, several million square foot industrial operations, shopping malls, and high-rise office or for rent apartments. We appraise ag land and just raw land that is, we often refer to as transitional land, where things are transitioning from what was once a rural or agricultural use to ultimately in many cases, a residential or commercial use. Um, I've appraised a lot of unique properties over the years in a lot of interesting areas, and it's each assignment is a good learning exercise that I would submit applies to all real estate appraisal.
Interesting. What got Integra into community facilities districts or evaluating projects that are eventually going to sell community facility district bonds?
So we joined Integra Realty Resources in 2017. Prior to that, we were known as Sievers, Jordan, Ziegenmeyer, and my partner, Kevin Ziegenmeyer, whom I actually trained under when I started in real estate appraisal back in the late 90s, pretty much took the lead for our firm, our small firm back then, on getting into the appraisal for community facilities districts or land secured financing back in the mid 90s. He was part of a group that was put together, you know, throwing out acronyms and CDAC and whatnot, but he was part of a group that worked with the state of California to update guidelines for valuing property for community facilities district bond issuances, which was updated in 2004, and he contributed to that update. And I submit, starting under him and working with him when I did, and having the both the finance and the real estate land use education really appealed to me, and I just didn't look back. I thoroughly enjoyed valuation of development and trying to work through this process of seeing something that looks like raw land that will soon have houses and schools and supporting retail services. That's all brought about by financing mechanisms that are really important here in the state of California.
So how many people are employed by Integra?
Oh, good question. I think here in our Sacramento office, we have, in terms of staff appraisers, not including the partners and myself, probably about 12 or 14 staff appraisers. In our Bay Area office, I think we have about another 8 or 9 appraisers. And that's just here in our private offices. Integra is a national organization, so we have over 50 offices nationwide and partners nationwide that we often collaborate with on all types of commercial real estate assignments, whether they be for right-of-way acquisition and eminent domain assignments, both statewide and nationally. These things come into play, and so it's been great having these new partners that we get to collaborate on, because there's appraisal assignments that my partners in New Jersey may deal with that we don't really have to address here in California. And in fact, I was working on an assignment for the EPA that involved contaminated, a Superfund site. And without getting too comical, I rightly reached out to my partners in New Jersey who are familiar with site contamination and dealing with certain appraisals of that magnitude. So it's been a great resource to have that.
Okay. Well, Eric, one of the things that really made me want to reach out and have this type of conversation with you is I think what you and others at your firm have been able to do with community facilities districts is really bring a business approach to it, but also maintain that friendliness and kindness that we've seen with you. But for the community facilities district side of things, one of the things that we found, or I found, was we had 3 or 4 appraisers that really started out in the 80s when community facilities were starting. And these 3 or 4 firms did a great job, and they're some of the nicest people you ever meet. I mean, the first thing we all do when we see each other is ask about our families, tell each other we don't get to see each other enough, and it was always great to see them. We've all worked with them for many years. But what's happened, what I found has happened is a lot of these firms didn't build that next round of people, that succession plan. And as they've gotten more mature in their career, there's vacations, there's grandkids, there's all these things that made scheduling very difficult. It got to the point where I would actually create a kind of a mystery list of projects so that I kind of always had this like, I need you to do this in May, I need you to do this in June. Even though I didn't quite know what that project would be, but I was trying to reserve time with some of these different firms. One of my partners suggested I reach out to your firm, and we've done that, and I feel like it's really worked well for our clients, and it's worked well for the team members as well. And so, was there a concerted effort to say we're going to, focus more on community facilities districts, and we're going to do it in a way that really made sure you met the timelines of the projects?
So when I got into this business again in the late 90s, we were a smaller firm, and the partners at that time had really made a concerted effort to grow internally. That, appraisers tend to be very independent, or you're marketing and you're providing your services, your ability to analyze, your expertise. That's what we are. We provide a service of expertise in real estate valuation, and there are appraisers that specialize in very different commercial valuation assignments. We knew that for us to grow, we really needed to start training from the outset. And I think probably I was the first experiment that we suddenly started, looking for college graduates, people that might be interested in real estate, but not really have any idea about real estate valuation and appraisal. So we started back in the early 2000s with growing our firm and our presence, recognizing that by doing that, we would have a consistent group of people that were trained the same way on how to, approach each respective assignment. And it would give us the ability to meet almost any demands from clients, whether they're time constraints or complex appraisal assignments that maybe others are reticent or reluctant to take. When we started growing our appraisal for land secured financing, Kevin put a tremendous amount of effort, and I kind of went along and grew with that to handle probably more than our fair share of that work in the Northern California market. Both assessment districts and community facilities districts were very popular and common up here during the 2000s, when there was a lot of new development in emerging or expanding areas, and they couldn't have done it without land secured financing. We, again, being part of a small group of professionals in this industry that includes attorneys, financial advisors, underwriters, assessment engineers, appraisers, I echo your thoughts. The appraisers that we've had the privilege of knowing in the Southern California market that really kind of spearheaded a lot of the appraisal for land secured financing in Southern California, which is without a doubt the largest market area. We too recognized an ability to expand and try to garner some of that market with our willingness or ability to meet more aggressive timelines, just given our staffing ability and the fact that we had been training a younger staff on all things related to land secured financing and the appraisal subdivisions and master plan communities that are more often than not the focus of community facilities district appraisals.
Okay, well, now that was the easy part of the interview. Now we get to the difficult part.
Uh-oh.
This is called, it's new to the public finance conversations. It is called the crystal ball phase. And we want to know what's coming up next with valuations.
Well, I wish I could forecast lottery numbers because that would be helpful. I think there is what we've kind of watched over the years, and this actually stems from the last down cycle that we had in, starting in the end of 2005, that led into the prior recession. Because the entitlement process here in California can often take decades, so when you talk about land transitioning from once ag-related or ag operations to, one day having houses with streets and schools and parks, the consensus, and we're constantly talking with real estate professionals, the land developers, the merchant builders, and everybody involved in it, we still remain tremendously undersupplied in housing in all aspects, whether it's for sale, for rent. And I'm convinced that even in the current environment that we're all dealing with, that as long as financing is favorable and beneficial for the market participants, the land developers, the people that are going to take that risk to entitle and redevelop land for suburban or urban use, that for the next year or two, I still kind of see a huge push for development and being able to construct and have a supply of ready to develop lots in the market to meet demand. Knock on wood, that keeps us all busy and keeps the market moving. But I'm remaining optimistic that 2021 we'll still see a healthy activity for land development and real estate valuation.
Well, I appreciate you for being a good sport and trying to answer an unfair and difficult question when it's being recorded. So thank you.
Can we record it? Can we record an opposite or an alternative just so we could swap in and out?
Well, two versions. In like 6 months, if things go bad, I'll swap in that new question. Okay, get ready. I'll ask you it again. No, but in all seriousness, I have a feeling if I ask the underwriters or even myself where interest rates are going, would certainly try to give an answer, but put in a few more hedges than you did. I think you laid out a very concise.
Go up, it could go down.
That's right. That's right. There's only two ways, or three things. It might stay the same too.
Right.
But Eric, would you, normally towards the end of here, I start asking about their families, and I want to do that, but it's impossible with the setting of your office there to not ask you about. It seems that you might be a serious movie fan. Is that the case?
I am. My father was a very big movie file and was so adamant about going to the movies anytime he could that despite what may or may not have been appropriate for young children, if he wanted to go to the movies, we went. And so, yes, fine films like The Blues Brothers or Saturday Night Fever, I think are part of my repertoire. But yes, grew up watching old films and probably still guilty of doing that to this day.
Well, it's your parents, we all know, have a big influence on you. My mom was a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. And in 1984, we went to the Coliseum. And while I'm still a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, I was terrified that day. I had never heard anything so loud, never seen so many people. I was 9 years old at a Bruce Springsteen concert. But both their parents have left a real passion for both of us. You have your movies, and I have the boss. But now, take a moment and share about your family with us, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Grew up out here. I'm a first-generation Californian. Grew up here in California. My grandparents, my my father's parents and my dad all immigrated to California from Atlantic City, New Jersey, and moved to Whittier, California. So I grew up with my grandparents down in Whittier, where my grandfather owned a plumbing business, and got to enjoy about 34 years with my grandparents. I was very close with them, and just loved growing up in Southern California and going to Huntington Beach and all things sun. Uh, Not married. I do have I like to call her my adopted daughter, but I think she probably adopted me as a dad. But I do have a 21-year-old daughter named Haley, who is a junior at the University of Arizona in Tucson. They're a starter for the Wildcats as a split blocker in beach volleyball. So she is trying to tear it up on the sand in the middle of the desert, but get to enjoy spending time with her and going to watch tournaments when they can play. Hopefully, come the spring, things will bounce back. But yeah, other than that, just again, when I can, I enjoy traveling, and I have a partner who lives in Hawaii now, and so my other partners here and I use that excuse as an ability to go visit the islands, and every once in a while work on a master plan community in the islands. So it's been great.
That's great. Well, Eric, I've hinted at a bit why I thought it'd be really great to sit down and have you a part of the public finance conversation process. You know, I don't know you as well as I know a lot of the other people I've interviewed, so I've kind of really gone into some on detail on what I've learned about those people over the last decade. But what I've learned about you over the last few years is you have an enthusiasm for the work. You really want to put the client first, and and really work hard to make all those things, to make those two things happen well. Is represent the client and be a great team member. So I really want to thank you for really helping some of our financings, and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Well, I thank you. It's you know, I feel the same way. It's truly an honor and a privilege for me, and I know for Kevin and my partners as well, to um, have the opportunity to work with so many great people and so many great minds and in this space. And I know that it is a small space of people that specialize in this area, and it's really been great to meet and work with people over the last few decades, especially with your office and folks in the cast off side. So no, I appreciate it and appreciate the kind words, and look forward to many more years.
Hey, Eric, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it.